My husband's ex showed up with a 9-year-old and a DNA test. Our marriage survived. She did not expect that. I'm going to tell this story from my own perspective because it is the only perspective I have complete access to, and because honesty about that limitation feels important given the nature of what I'm describing. My husband Declan and I had been married for 6 years when Simone appeared. She arrived not dramatically. No doorstep confrontation, no explosive phone call, but through a lawyer's letter addressed to Declan that arrived on a Tuesday morning, and that he brought to me that same evening with the expression of someone who has decided that the only navigable path through a situation is complete transparency, regardless of where transparency leads. The letter stated that Simone believed Declan was the biological father of her son Arlo, who was 9 years old, and that she was seeking formal establishment of paternity and a determination of parental rights and financial responsibilities. I read the letter twice. Then I put it on the kitchen table and looked at my husband and asked him to tell me everything he knew. What he knew was this: he and Simone had been together briefly, almost a decade before we met. During a period of his life he had described to me in general terms in the way that people describe their romantic histories before they met you. The relationship had ended without acrimony and without ongoing contact. He had not known about Arlo. He had not known Simone was pregnant. He said this looking directly at me with the steadiness of someone making a statement they understand will be tested and are willing to have tested. I believed him. I want to be clear that this was not naive. I believed him, because across 6 years of marriage I had developed a reliable sense of the difference between Declan being honest and Declan managing my perception of events. And what I was looking at was the former. That assessment could have been wrong. I accepted that risk and made my decision. We agreed that evening on how we would proceed. A DNA test requested promptly and without contest. Full legal engagement with Simone's claim. Because if Arlo was Declan's son, then Arlo deserved acknowledgement and Declan deserved to know his child. No secrecy from our own children who were 8 and 6, managed at an age-appropriate level and in their own time. And complete honesty between us at every stage, regardless of what each stage revealed. The DNA test confirmed paternity. Declan sat with the result for a long time. I sat with him. What followed across the next 14 months was the most sustained period of difficulty our marriage had experienced, and also, I think, the period in which I understood most clearly what our marriage actually was. We attended counseling not because we were in crisis, but because we were navigating genuinely complex territory, and the assistance of someone skilled at helping people navigate complex territory seemed like a reasonable resource to use. We had difficult conversations that required us both to be more honest than comfort preferred. We came through them. Simone had expected, I think, a different dynamic. Her lawyer's communications across the early months had the quality of someone anticipating either denial or negotiation conducted from guilt, and the straightforward cooperative engagement she received instead appeared to require repeated recalibration. When Declan requested generous visitation rather than contesting paternity. When I agreed to be present at the first meeting between Declan and Arlo because Declan asked me to, and because I had decided that Arlo was a child who deserved stability rather than an instrument of anyone's marital difficulty. When we proposed a parenting arrangement that prioritized Arlo's adjustment over anyone's legal positioning, each of these responses appeared to land differently than she had anticipated. I met Arlo for the first time on a Saturday morning in a park that had been selected for its neutrality. He was 9 and careful and had Declan's eyes in a way that required a private moment of adjustment on my part that I took when I excused myself briefly to get water from a nearby fountain. He was polite and quiet, and by the end of 2 hours had shown Declan 3 things on his phone that he found interesting, which I recognized as a significant gesture of trust from a child who had been told something enormous about his own origins and was doing his best with it. Our children met him 2 months later. The meeting was imperfect and necessary, and by the end of it my 8-year-old had challenged Arlo to a racing game on her console, and my 6-year-old had attempted to give him a toy he had clearly never intended to part with, and then reconsidered midway through and negotiated a loan arrangement instead, which Arlo had accepted with a gravity that suggested he understood the honor of it. Simone and I are not friends. I want to be honest about that rather than constructing a tidier ending than the situation produced. We are 2 people managing a shared complexity with sufficient professionalism that the complexity does not damage the children caught inside it. On the occasions we interact, there is a careful civility that I maintain, not because it is easy, but because Arlo is watching and children absorb the emotional temperature of adult interactions with an accuracy that adults routinely underestimate. Declan is present in Arlo's life in the consistent, reliable way that I think Arlo needed most. Not dramatically, not performatively, simply there. Saturday mornings, school events when Simone agrees to them. A phone call on Tuesday evenings that has become, over the months, something Arlo apparently expects and plans around. Our marriage is intact. More than intact, it is something I understand more completely than I did before. The letter arrived on that Tuesday morning, which is perhaps the strangest and most genuine thing I can say about a year that I would not have chosen and would not undo. Some things break you open rather than apart. We chose apart. Every day we make that choice again.